Let's be clear from the outset, I don't believe Nigel Farage is ill, and he's not succumbing to some undisclosed malady, nor is he secretly slipping into the IC retirement chamber, the freezer section next to Vladimir Putin in the geopolitical smeg fridge. The man has returned from bickering with American Democrats over the Online Safety Act, hardly the behaviour of a political leader in decline. If anything, he seems energised, more provocative, more visible than ever. Today in the Daily Mail or the Mail on Saturday, he's visible with boxing gloves and also on GB News, just to put the point across. And yet the health rumours persist, circulating through Westminster like the wishful whisperings of parties terrified of the political monster that they've failed to kill when they had the chance. So, where did this narrative originate? Quite simply, from panic. Reform UK has topped 80 consecutive polls. In some models, it's now projected to win the most seats in the House of Commons. I snigger into my handkerchief. Labour and the Conservatives, used to swapping power like a family heirloom, says Isabel Oakeshott, are now watching the political furniture being auctioned off by someone they thought was a sideshow. Who's that wonderful comedian who makes a joke about hanky-panky and says it's now mostly hanky? Well, that's the problem, because there isn't very much of Reform UK to talk about. With neither major party able to discredit Farage on immigration, crime or tax policy, whispers about his health have become the last-ditch fantasy of the flailing establishment. His health and his absence. What would happen if Nigel Farage was absent? Farage, for his part, has dismissed the speculation with relish. He still drinks, he still smokes, but in his own words, he walks the dogs, does a bit of exercise, and manages the schedule of a man half his age. He's up at 4:50 and in bed by 11. No one who's ever worked with Farage would describe him as idle or distracted. If anything, he appears to be more disciplined than ever, more zen, as he puts it, less bothered by online noise or media hysteria. But this is where the real issue lies, because while Farage may be healthy, Reform UK is not. It's not structurally healthy, it's not ideologically broad, and it's not institutionally robust. It is, in essence, Nigel Farage with a turquoise backdrop. And if he were to fall under a bus or simply take a long holiday, the party would lose its compass, its voice, and its identity. It would become a lavender wreck. The centralisation of message, authority and branding around Farage is extreme, while figures like Zia Yusuf and Rupert Rob Arthur Lowe make noise on the flanks, or rather Rupert Rob Arthur Lowe has gone in a different direction. But actually it's Rupert Lowe who asked that fundamental question: Is Farage too much? Is Farage the be-all and end-all of Reform UK? Reform is, at its heart, a one-man band with a digital microphone, like Dick Van Dyke at the beginning. Well, Dick Van Dyke all the way through Mary Poppins and Mary Poppins Returns. He's sort of ever-present, ubiquitous. And this is what I mean. If you're Dick Van Dyke, people might enjoy Dick Van Dyke everywhere. A bit of Dick is a delight, but a bit of Farage, a lot of people would heave at the thought of just a little bit. But with Reform UK, that's all you've got. Everywhere you look, it's Farage. And this is what makes the persistent gossip about his health politically significant. It exposes the fundamental fragility of the party in the same way as the absence of Putin exposes the fundamental fragility of the Kremlin. Labour and the Conservatives are clinging to the hope that Reform UK's future is chained to one man's liver, lungs or calendar, and to some extent they're not wrong. And even Farage knows this. He's begun efforts to broaden his leadership base, push others forward, cultivate a sense of party rather than just personality, but this transition is tentative and largely invisible to the public. In polling, the name Reform UK has limited resonance unless tied directly to Farage, to his image. And when voters say they like Reform, what they mean is they like Farage. The party's policy documents, even its 100-page draft bill on the ECHR, are meaningless without his relentless promotion and articulation are not shallow. Well, he may not be, but the rest of Reform UK is. Farage's opponents have therefore developed a paradoxical attitude. They fear his survival and yet bet on his collapse. It's a dangerous wager, because if he does continue, and all evidence suggests he will, then both Labour and the Conservatives are facing an existential reckoning. He is more visible than Kemi Badenoch, more focused, more ideologically coherent than Keir Starmer, more brutally effective at opposition than either. Reform UK is increasingly viewed as the actual alternative to a government that isn't functioning well. And it's therefore not Farage's health that's deteriorating, it's the credibility of the parties hoping he will vanish. And finally, we shouldn't forget the symbolism of Farage squabbling with a Democratic congressman and being called a giant man-baby. This is not idleness, this is classic Farage. Theatrical, combative, headline-grabbing. And his critics cannot decide whether to mock him or mimic him. And meanwhile he strides on, pint in hand, cigar in hand, aping Churchill and perhaps, if only in silhouette, J.K. Rowling's triumphant image following her achievement in the trans debate. Or maybe one might think this is that Farage is going to be confused with Voldemort. Farage is not dead, but without him, Reform UK might just as well be.